First contact goes wrong. The coffee in Commander Elena Vasquez's cup had gone cold hours ago, but she barely noticed. Her dark eyes stayed fixed on the massive holographic display floating above the command center of Earth's orbital defense station. What she saw there made her stomach twist into knots that seemed to tighten with each passing minute. "Ma'am, we're getting more readings," said Lieutenant Torres, his young voice cracking slightly under the pressure. "The objects are definitely artificial. Ship-like structures, and they're huge." Elena nodded slowly, never taking her eyes off the display. 17 years she had served in the United Earth Space Command, working her way up from a fighter pilot to fleet commander. She had seen asteroid impacts, solar flares, and every kind of space debris imaginable. But she had never seen anything like this. The alien fleet stretched across the darkness between Jupiter and Mars like a metallic constellation. Each ship was the size of a small city, their surfaces gleaming with an otherworldly silver-blue metal that seemed to pulse with internal light. There were hundreds of them, moving in perfect formation toward Earth with the slow, inevitable approach of death itself. "How long until they reach Earth orbit?" Elena asked, though she dreaded the answer. "At current speed, approximately 18 hours, Commander," replied Chief Navigator Williams. The old man's weathered hands shook slightly as he worked his controls. "But, ma'am, they could accelerate at any time." Elena finally turned away from the display to face her crew. The command center hummed with nervous energy as dozens of technicians and officers worked at their stations. These were good people, trained professionals who had dedicated their lives to protecting Earth. But right now, they looked like children who had just realized monsters were real. "Get me a direct line to Earth Command," Elena ordered. "Priority Alpha. And start broadcasting on all frequencies. If these visitors want to talk, we need to hear from them now." Dr. Marcus Chen burst through the command center doors, his usually neat appearance disheveled from rushing. As Earth's leading genopsychologist, he had spent years studying the possibility of alien contact. Now that it was happening, he looked more terrified than excited. "Commander Vasquez," he said, slightly out of breath, "I've been analyzing the ship's approach patterns. This isn't exploration or peaceful contact. This is a military formation designed for planetary conquest." "How can you be sure?" Elena asked, though deep down she already knew the answer. Dr. Chen activated his tablet, projecting images into the air between them. "Look at their positioning. They're surrounding our solar system, cutting off escape routes. It's textbook invasion strategy, designed to prevent any ships from fleeing to warn other worlds." "Other worlds?" Lieutenant Torres looked confused. "Think about it," Dr. Chen continued, his voice growing more urgent. "A fleet this size, this organized, doesn't develop overnight. They've done this before. Many times." Before Elena could respond, every screen in the command center flickered and went dark. Then, slowly, an image began to form. The face that appeared was unlike anything in human nightmares, tall and angular, with skin that seemed to shift between gray and green, 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and a mouth filled with teeth that looked designed for tearing flesh. When the creature spoke, its voice came through their translation systems as a low, rumbling bass that seemed to vibrate through the station's hull. "Primitive inhabitants of the third planet," the alien said, its 4 eyes focusing on the camera with predatory intensity. "I am Commander Thexkar of the Cytherian Empire. Your world has been selected for integration into our domain." Elena stepped forward, her military training taking over despite the fear coursing through her veins. "This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Space Command. You are not welcome in our solar system. Leave immediately or face the consequences." The alien's face twisted into what might have been amusement. "Consequences? Your species possesses primitive projectile weapons and basic fusion technology. We have conquered 217 worlds across this galaxy. Some possess technology far beyond your own. All submitted once they understood the futility of resistance." "Then you don't know humans very well," Elena replied, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. Humans. Commander Thexkar repeated the word like he was tasting something unpleasant. Yes, we have studied your species for some time. You fight among yourselves constantly, destroy your own environment, and cannot even unite your world under a single government. You are chaotic, illogical, and weak. Dr. Chen moved closer to Elena, whispering urgently, "He's using psychological warfare. Classic intimidation tactics designed to make us surrender without fighting." Elena nodded slightly, then addressed the alien commander again. "If we're so weak and primitive, why bring such a massive fleet? Seems like overkill for a bunch of chaotic, illogical humans." For the first time, Commander Thexkar hesitated. It was barely noticeable, just a fraction of a second, but Elena caught it. The alien was not as confident as he pretended to be. "The size of our fleet demonstrates the Kitharian Empire's power," Thexkar finally said. "You have 6 of your Earth hours to gather your leaders and formally surrender. Comply, and your species will be relocated to suitable labor worlds. Resist, and we will demonstrate why 217 civilizations shows submission over extinction." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. 6 hours, whispered Lieutenant Torres. "That's not enough time to evacuate even one city." Elena was already moving, her mind racing through possibilities. "Dr. Chen, I need everything you can tell me about invasion psychology. Lieutenant Torres, get me the President, the Secretary General of the UN, and every military commander on the planet. Chief Williams, start calculating firing solutions for every defensive platform we have." "Commander," Dr. Chen said quietly, "our entire space fleet consists of 43 ships. Most are exploration vessels with minimal weapons, against hundreds of alien warships." "I know the odds, Doctor," Elena cut him off. "But there's something that alien doesn't understand about humans. We don't do math the same way everyone else does." As the command center erupted into controlled chaos, Elena stared out the observation windows at the distant alien fleet. Each ship represented technology centuries beyond Earth's capabilities. By any logical calculation, humanity was about to be wiped out. But Elena had learned something during her years in space that no alien invader could understand. Humans had never been particularly logical. They were the species that had climbed out of caves and decided to reach for the stars. They were the people who looked at impossible odds and said, "Challenge accepted." "Commander," came a voice from the communication station. "We're receiving calls from every major government on Earth. They want to know what our response will be." Elena thought about her daughter Sophia, probably sitting in her college dorm room studying for exams, completely unaware that alien warships were preparing to destroy her world. She thought about the billions of people going about their daily lives, trusting that someone would protect them from the monsters in the dark. "Tell them our response is simple," Elena said, her voice carrying across the entire command center. "We're human. We don't surrender." Over the next few hours, something unprecedented happened. For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth put aside their differences and united under a single purpose. The President of the United States worked alongside the Premier of China. European leaders coordinated with African and South American commanders. Old enemies became instant allies in the face of extinction. Captain Sarah Mitchell received her orders while running pre-flight checks on her fighter ship at Luna Base. She was a veteran pilot with over 300 combat missions, but she had never faced anything like this. "All fighters, this is command," came Elena's voice over the radio. "We're not going to lie to you. We're outnumbered, outgunned, and facing technology we don't understand. But we have something they don't expect. We have each other, and we have the refusal to give up." Sarah strapped herself into her cockpit, feeling the familiar weight of her flight suit. Around her, dozens of other pilots were doing the same. Some were crying. Some were praying. All of them were staying. "Remember," Elena continued, "they've conquered over 200 worlds using fear and intimidation. They expect us to calculate the odds and surrender. They expect us to be logical. Show them what illogical looks like. Engineer Tommy Rodriguez worked frantically in the depths of the defense station, modifying every weapon they had. He was just 25 years old, fresh out of MIT with degrees in physics and engineering. His modifications weren't elegant or sophisticated, but they would make human weapons hit harder and fire faster. "It doesn't matter if we only have 6 hours," Tommy muttered to himself as he rewired a missile guidance system. Humans built the pyramids, went to the moon, and figured out the internet. 6 hours is enough time to surprise some aliens. Meanwhile, aboard the Cytherian flagship, Commander Thexkar was growing uneasy. His sensors showed the humans were not evacuating their cities or gathering their leaders for surrender. Instead, every military installation on the planet was powering up weapons systems. More disturbing, their primitive space fleet was actually moving to intercept his forces. Admiral Zorthak, Thexkar contacted his superior via quantum communication. "The humans are not responding as predicted. They appear to be preparing for military resistance." "Impossible," came the reply from the distant Cytherian homeworld. "Show them recordings of our previous conquests. Display the fate of the Zentari Empire or the Mektar Federation. No species continues to resist once they understand the scope of our power." But even as Thexkar prepared to send those recordings, his tactical officers were reporting something that made no sense. The human ships weren't running away or hiding behind their planet's defenses. They were accelerating directly toward the Cytherian fleet. "Sir," said his tactical officer, "the humans are broadcasting on all frequencies." The same message, repeated in hundreds of languages. "What does it say?" Thexkar demanded. The officer hesitated before answering. "It says, 'Come and take it.'" For the first time in his long military career, Commander Thexkar felt something he had never experienced when facing a primitive species. He felt uncertain. The first shots of the war came not from the massive alien battleships, but from a small human fighter piloted by Captain Sarah Mitchell. She had volunteered to make the opening move, flying her tiny ship directly at a Cytherian destroyer that was 50 times her size. "This is for everyone who never got the chance to fight back," Sarah said into her radio as she fired every weapon she had. Her missiles struck the alien ship's shields, causing barely visible flickers of energy. But they had an effect that no Cytherian could have predicted. Every human ship in the fleet saw that single fighter take on impossible odds, and something awakened in the human spirit that had been dormant since their ancestors first picked up rocks to fight wild animals. Elena watched from the command center as her entire fleet opened fire simultaneously. 43 human ships against hundreds of alien warships. The math said it was suicide. The humans did it anyway. "All ships, this is Vasquez," Elena broadcast to her fleet. "Remember, we're not trying to win a conventional battle. We're trying to show them that some species can't be conquered. Make every shot count." As the first human missiles struck alien shields, Commander Thexkar realized that everything the Cytherian Empire believed about conquest was about to be tested by a species that didn't read the manual on how to be conquered. What makes humans different? The battle had been raging for 12 hours, and Commander Thexkar was experiencing something entirely new in his military career. Confusion. His tactical displays showed that the Cytherian fleet should have achieved complete victory within the first hour. The humans possessed inferior technology, fewer ships, and weaker weapons. By every calculation, they should have been destroyed or surrendered long ago. Instead, they were fighting harder than ever. "Status report," Thexkar demanded from his bridge officers. "Sir, we have destroyed 18 human vessels," reported his tactical officer. "However, the remaining ships have somehow improved their combat effectiveness by 37% since the battle began." Impossible. Primitive species cannot adapt their technology during active combat. "Nevertheless, sir, they are hitting our ships with increasing accuracy and have modified their weapons to exploit weaknesses in our shield harmonics." On the other side of the battle, Elena Vasquez was coordinating the human defense from her command center, while simultaneously feeling proud and heartbroken. They were losing ships and good people, but her pilots were performing miracles. Commander, reported Dr. Chen, who had been monitoring alien communications, I'm intercepting increased chatter from their fleet. They're requesting instructions from their high command. I think we're making them nervous. Good, Elena replied grimly. Tommy, how are those modifications coming? Engineer Rodriguez's voice crackled over the intercom from deep within the station. I figured out how to make our missiles punch through their shields, but only for about 10 seconds before they adapt. The problem is, they learn from each attack. Then we need to keep changing the attacks, Elena said. Can you teach other engineers how to make different modifications? Already on it, Commander. I'm broadcasting instructions to every human ship and station. We're going to hit them with 50 different surprises. This was exactly the kind of thinking that was confusing Commander Thexkar. In his experience, primitive species used the same weapons and tactics throughout entire conflicts. They lacked the technical knowledge to modify their technology in real time. Yet somehow, these humans were treating the battle like a learning experience. Captain Sarah Mitchell, still alive in her damaged fighter, was pursuing a Cytherian cruiser through the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Her ship's systems were failing, her weapons were almost depleted, and any sane pilot would have retreated to fight another day. Instead, she was using the asteroids as cover to get close enough to ram the alien ship. Command, this is Mitchell, she radioed. I'm going to try something really stupid. Sarah, negative. Elena's voice came back immediately. Return to base for repairs. With respect, Commander, I've been studying their movement patterns. These aliens fly like they're following a computer program. They don't improvise. Watch this. Sarah suddenly accelerated her fighter directly toward what appeared to be certain collision with an asteroid. At the last possible second, she flipped her ship and used the asteroid's gravity to slingshot around it, coming up behind the Cytherian cruiser with perfect positioning for a killing shot. Her remaining missiles struck the alien ship's engine section, causing a cascade failure that tore the vessel apart. How did she know that would work? Thexkar demanded, watching the tactical replay. Sir, analysis suggests the human pilot calculated a gravitational assist maneuver while under combat stress. This requires processing multiple variables simultaneously while being shot at. And she did this without computer assistance. Correct, sir. The human brain appears capable of intuitive calculations that should be impossible for organic neural networks. Meanwhile, on Earth's surface, the real surprise was just beginning. The Cytherian Empire had sent ground forces to occupy major cities, expecting the human military to surrender once their space fleet was destroyed. What they found instead was something that no previous conquest had prepared them for. In New York City, construction worker Maria Santos had never held a military weapon in her life. When alien soldiers began marching through Times Square, she was supposed to evacuate with the other civilians. Instead, she grabbed a sledgehammer from a nearby construction site and organized the other workers into an impromptu resistance unit. These aliens think they can just walk into our city. Maria shouted to the dozen construction workers who had stayed behind. Let's show them what New Yorkers do to uninvited guests. The Cytherian soldiers were equipped with advanced energy weapons and armor that could deflect most projectile weapons. What they were not prepared for was humans who used construction equipment as weapons. Maria's team used bulldozers to ram alien vehicles, dropped steel beams from crane trucks onto enemy formations, and turned the entire city into a maze of improvised obstacles. In Tokyo, elderly sushi chef Hiroshi Yamamoto had lived through enough disasters to know that sometimes you have to make a stand. When Cytherian soldiers entered his restaurant, demanding food supplies, he calmly continued preparing fish while explaining to them that they were making a mistake. You see, Hiroshi said in perfect English, knowing the aliens' translation systems would understand him, humans are like rice. We seem simple individually, but together we become something much stronger." As he spoke, Hiroshi's hands moved with the precision of 60 years' experience, filleting fish with a knife that was sharp enough to cut molecular bonds. The lead Cytherian soldier stepped forward to arrest him, and discovered that a master chef's knife skills translate surprisingly well to combat when applied with sufficient creativity and determination. Back in space, Dr. Chen was making a discovery that would change everything. While analyzing captured alien technology, he had found something remarkable in the Cytherian database. "Commander Vasquez," he called excitedly, "you need to see this. I've been studying their conquest records, and I found something incredible." Elena hurried to Dr. Chen's workstation, where he had display screens showing data from dozens of different worlds. "Look at this pattern," Dr. Chen said, pointing to charts and graphs. "Every species the Cytherians have conquered followed the same basic sequence: initial resistance, tactical analysis, logical surrender when they calculated the odds of victory. So humans are the first species that didn't follow the pattern. We're the first ones who kept fighting after calculating the odds. Elena, we're breaking their entire model of how conquest works." "What does that mean?" Dr. Chen pulled up a communication intercept. "It means they're asking their high command for instructions on how to deal with an illogical species. They literally don't know what to do with us." Meanwhile, aboard the Cytherian flagship, Admiral Zorthak's holographic image appeared before Commander Thexkar. The Admiral was ancient even by Cytherian standards, having personally overseen the conquest of over 50 worlds. "Commander Thexkar, explain why a primitive world is still resisting after 12 hours of combat." "Admiral, the humans are not responding to our psychological warfare. They continue fighting despite suffering significant casualties. More troubling, they appear to be learning and adapting their tactics faster than we can counter them." "Impossible. Primitive species lack the neural capacity for rapid tactical evolution. Nevertheless, Admiral, they have successfully modified their weapons 17 times during this battle. Each modification exploits a different weakness in our technology." Admiral Zorthak studied the tactical reports, his 4 eyes narrowing with concern. "Commander, are you suggesting that these humans possess capabilities we have not encountered before?" "I am suggesting, Admiral, that they may be genuinely different from other species. Their behavior patterns do not match any in our conquest database." "Then we will make an example of them," Zorthak decided. "Deploy the planetary bombardment weapons. If they will not surrender, we will demonstrate the price of resistance." But as the massive Cytherian dreadnoughts moved into position to begin destroying Earth's cities, something unprecedented happened. The human fleet, which should have been desperate to protect their homeworld, instead accelerated directly toward the dreadnoughts. "Commander," reported Elena's tactical officer, "we're receiving a transmission from Captain Chen's destroyer. He's requesting permission to ram the lead dreadnought." Elena felt her heart skip a beat. Captain Chen was her friend, a good man with a wife and 2 children. "Negative, Captain Chen. We need every ship we have." "Ma'am, with respect," came Chen's voice over the radio. "You taught us that sometimes the best way to win is to do something the enemy doesn't expect. They expect us to protect our planet defensively. They don't expect us to sacrifice everything to take out their biggest gun." Before Elena could respond, Captain Chen had already committed to his attack run. His destroyer, heavily damaged and running on emergency power, dove straight toward the Cytherian dreadnought's main weapon array. "Chen, what are you doing?" Elena called desperately. "Something human, Commander," came his reply. "Tommy modified my ship's reactor to overload on impact. If I can take out their planetary bombardment weapon, the rest of the fleet has a chance." Elena watched helplessly as Captain Chen's ship struck the alien dreadnought. The explosion was visible from Earth's surface, a brief new star that outshone Venus for several seconds. When the light faded, both ships were gone. The effect on the battle was immediate and profound. The other human captains saw what Chen had done, and suddenly every damaged ship became a potential weapon. The Cytherians found themselves facing opponents who treated their own lives as acceptable losses in exchange for damaging the invasion fleet. Admiral Thexkar reported urgently, "The humans have destroyed our primary bombardment vessel. They are now conducting suicide attacks against our heavy cruisers. How many ships are they willing to sacrifice?" "Unknown, Admiral. Possibly all of them." For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Zorthak felt something approaching fear. Species that were willing to die rather than surrender were almost impossible to conquer. They had to be completely exterminated, which was expensive and time-consuming. "Commander Thexkar, begin withdrawal preparations. We will regroup and develop new strategies for dealing with this species." "Admiral, our orders were to conquer this system within one standard cycle. Our orders were written assuming we would encounter irrational species. These humans appear to suffer from a form of species-wide mental disorder that makes them continue fighting regardless of casualties or odds. We need specialists in dealing with insane civilizations." As the Cytherian fleet began its retreat, Alina couldn't believe what she was seeing on her tactical displays. "Dr. Chen," she called to the xenopsychologist, "are they actually leaving?" "It appears so, Commander. I'm intercepting communications that suggest they're classifying humanity as a Type 7 resistant species, which apparently requires specialized conquest protocols." Elena looked around her command center at the exhausted faces of her crew. They had lost 21 ships and over 3,000 people. By any military standard, they had been defeated. Yet somehow, the aliens were retreating. "Commander," came Tommy Rodriguez's voice over the intercom, "I've been analyzing the alien tech we captured. I think I know why they're leaving." "Tell me, Tommy." "They're not used to fighting people who get better during the fight. Every other species they conquered probably used the same tactics from beginning to end. We kept changing, kept adapting, kept trying new things. They couldn't predict what we'd do next because we were making it up as we went along." Elena smiled for the first time in 24 hours. "So you're saying we won because we're too crazy to know when we're beaten?" "Pretty much, Commander. We're too human to be conquered." As news of the alien retreat spread across Earth, something remarkable happened. The planet that had never been able to agree on anything suddenly realized they had something more valuable than any technology or weapon. They had the refusal to give up, the ability to adapt under pressure, and the willingness to do whatever it took to protect what they loved. The Cytherian Empire added Earth to their list of worlds requiring special protocols. Commander Thexkar filed a report recommending that humanity be classified as a species too dangerous to conquer unless absolutely necessary. But on Earth, people simply went back to their daily lives, knowing that when monsters came from the stars, humans had looked at impossible odds and said, "Not today." And in the depths of space, word began to spread among the civilizations of the galaxy about a small blue world whose inhabitants had done something no one thought possible. They had made the Cytherian Empire retreat. Humanity had announced its presence to the universe in the most human way possible, by refusing to accept defeat.